She gave up food for books. Then the millionaire CEO made a shocking decision at midnight. Emily Sanders couldn't remember the last time she felt truly alive. By day, she was just another face in the sea of bustling pedestrians, dodging through looming skyscrapers and the blaring horns of New York City. But at night, when the world slipped into a stillness that felt like a breath held in tension, she became something more, an intoxicating blend of ambition and obsession. Stripped down to her essence, she'd given up food, hunger a mere ghost haunting her thoughts. Pages of thick novels became her sustenance. Words etched in ink replaced the dinner plates she once filled with nightly meals. The way she devoured books like a starving wolf left her skin glowing and her eyes glittering with stories yet to unfold. But amidst her literary paradise, there was something strange in the air. Signs flickered through her mind like shadows stretched too far. What about the mysterious CEO, who'd been hovering on the outskirts of her life? Jack Harper, the enigmatic leader of a billion-dollar tech empire, had only recently begun to haunt her dreams. His jawline was chiseled like marble, and those dark, piercing eyes could cut through any facade. But it wasn't just his looks. It was the way he seemed to exist just beyond reach, like a character from one of her beloved novels, waiting for a twist in the plot that might make it all dangerous. Every night, she would hear tales whispered beneath the dim lights of the cafe she frequented, each stranger's voice thick with fascination and fear. Rumors tangled around Jack like a cloak, suggesting he was planning a shocking renovation in the literary world that would send waves through the very fabric of existence she had built between those pages. As the clock struck 12, it sent chills running down her spine. What would happen next? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But just as the anticipation thickened, a curious event unfolded at the stroke of midnight. A sharp knock echoing through the walls of her modest apartment, rattling her from the depths of her obsession. The door creaked open, revealing the silhouetted form of Jack Harper, standing there, drenched from the rain that had poured out of the heavens like angry tears. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and thunderous, sending a wave of electric shock coursing through her. Emily could hardly breathe, heat enveloping her, the night's shadows closing in. What could a millionaire like him possibly want with her? The questions spiraled, twisting around her like vines. And as she stared into his stormy eyes, confusion mixed with an undeniable thrill. The line between reality and the stories she cherished began to blur, racing toward a cliff where everything she knew might hang in peril. Would she leap into the unknown? Or would her mind's fantasies collapse under the weight of harsh truth? Emily felt her heart pounding against her ribs, primal and loud, as Jack Harper stepped inside, shaking off the rain like a wild animal shedding its skin. He closed the door softly behind him, sealing them off from the chaos outside, as if they were the only two people left in the world. "Emily," he started, his tone even more serious now, "this isn't just about your obsession with books. It's bigger than that." Her breath hitched. The inkling of fear mixed with curiosity danced in her chest. "What do you mean?" she managed, her voice barely a whisper. Jack ran a hand through his drenched hair, strands dark as night clinging to his forehead. "I need your help," he said, eyes locking onto hers with a fierce intensity that made her skin tingle. Her mind raced. How on earth could she, a mere bookworm, help him? With what? He stepped closer, and the air turned electric. "I'm launching a project that'll change everything. Think of it as a new chapter for literature itself. But I can't do it alone." His voice trailed off, watching her closely, as if gauging her reaction. She sought to process the weight of his words. The world she had so carefully curated with her books was on the verge of a seismic shift, and he wanted her as part of it. "What do you need from me?" she asked, a flicker of excitement igniting within her. Even as dread lingered, he crossed the distance between them and leaned in. I need someone who understands stories. Someone who lives and breathes them. Emily swallowed hard. And you think that's me? The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, a teasing twist against the storm of seriousness swirling around them. I don't think it. I know it. There's something about your passion that can breathe life into this vision. Visions crammed her mind. What could launch from this fateful midnight encounter? Glowing book covers, crowds at launch parties, and the palpable sense of adventure. A million readers discovering worlds she'd only dreamed of. Myself. But then, another thought pulled her back, chilling her veins. What kind of project? Jack stepped away, tension slicing through the air, and turned to look at her bookshelves. Something disruptive, innovative. We're merging technology with traditional literature, changing how stories are told and consumed. But the reaction hasn't been entirely positive. She could hardly breathe. This was enormous. What do you mean? The literary world is resistant to change. There are powerful players who want to keep it the way it is, he confessed, voice low and urgent. They won't let me proceed without a fight, and I've reason to believe they're already watching us. A chill swept through her as his words sank in. They were in a delicate situation, teetering on the edge of revolution and chaos. The weight of the decision laid heavy on her. She wasn't simply chasing plots anymore, she was part of one. What do we do? She asked, her resolve solidifying like armor. Jack locked eyes with her, the stormy depths swirling with intensity. You have to decide, Emily. Jump with me into the unknown, or turn back and stay safe within your pages. Her heart raced as the question hung in the air, thick and relentless. Would she let go of her familiar world and dive into the messy, thrilling unknown with him? As the clock's second hand ticked, she stood at a pivotal crossroads that could define the rest of her life. And then, from the corner of the room, a faint buzzing began to emanate, a dark signal igniting in the silence. Emily's pulse quickened. What now? The phone was alarming. Jack's expression shifted to concern, the momentary distraction leaving her wondering what new threat lurked just beyond their fragile bubble of safety. What had she stepped into? And would the world they created face an even darker storm? The buzz morphed into a nerve-wracking crescendo, clawing at the edges of Emily's mind. Jack grabbed his phone from the pocket of his drenched jacket, his face hardening as he read the screen. It's my assistant, he muttered, swiping his thumb with urgency. What does it say? Emily asked, her heart drumming a frantic rhythm against her ribcage. He frowned, his voice tense. There's been a breach in the security system. Someone got access to our files. Panic broke through her excitement like a wave crashing over a fragile shoreline. What files? The project details. The plans for the launch. He swallowed hard, pinching the bridge of his nose. I thought we had more time. I thought I could keep this under wraps. Instinct kicked in, a shiver running down her spine. Who? Jack shot her a look, his blue eyes flooded with doubt and fear. I don't know, but it's serious. If they're already aware of our plans, we may not have long. The walls of her small apartment, once a sanctuary woven with the threads of her imagination, felt stifling now. Shadows twisted in the corners, and every creak of the floor sent her mind reeling. Jack was right. People lived and breathed for stories, and changing the narrative threatened a lot of powerful egos. Can't we just, go to the police? Or maybe a lawyer can help, she suggested, her mind racing with second-hand fear, conflicting options flooding her thoughts. Jack shook his head, the urgency in his eyes challenging her naivety. It's not that simple. If we go to the authorities, it'll alert them that we're onto something. This could blow up in our faces. We have to be smarter, stealthier. The resolve hardened within her like steel. She had never been someone to back down from a challenge, even if the stakes were dramatically higher than deciding which book to read next. So what now? Emily asked, testing the steadiness in her voice, her heart still racing. We wait for them to act first? No, Jack replied, stepping closer again. We go on the offensive. We prepare ourselves to hit back. But first, we need to gather what information we can and figure out who might be behind this. An electric silence hovered between them, but this time it felt alive, charged with determination. What about my friends? She thought aloud, dread creeping into her thoughts. What if they get caught in the crossfire? Nothing will happen to them, Jack said fiercely, his conviction lending her strength. If anything, we can use them to draw attention away from us, make it seem effortless to shift focus. His confidence ignited a spark in her. A plan was forming, and there was no turning back now. Then let us do this. I'll reach out to some of my book club connections. Maybe they can help spread the word, distract whoever is looking for us. Jack nodded, a glimmer of admiration dancing in his eyes. You're braver than I thought. But just as she felt rising determination, a loud shatter echoed from the kitchen. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she and Jack rushed toward the sound. They found the back door swinging wide open, a gust of wind spilling into the room like a specter. On the floor lay a pile of shards from her favorite mug. It had been a gift from her grandmother, now rendered unrecognizable. Emily. Jack turned to her, eyes wide. We're not alone. A chill crept down her spine, a portent of the storm brewing just outside. Were they being watched? As the reality sunk in, her phone buzzed again, a message illuminating the screen. They're closer than you think. A cold shudder ran through her. Who were they? What did they want? Every instinct screamed at her to run, but Emily was ready to face whatever dark twist awaited them. Jack, we have to figure out who this is before it's too late, she said, heart racing with urgency. Agreed. But we need to move fast, Jack said. This is just the beginning. But unresolved questions hung thick in the air. Who were they really dealing with? And how far were they willing to go to protect their story? Just then, a figure flickered past the window, sending the darkness around them, spinning with possibilities. Could this all just be the edge of something much worse? Emily's heart thrummed wildly in her chest as she and Jack stood frozen, their eyes darting toward the gaping back door. The shadows outside seemed to deepen, curling around the edges of their reality like the tendrils of a looming nightmare. Did you see that? Emily whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. Jack nodded, clenching his jaw. Yeah, we need to move. Now. Spinning on her heels, Emily turned back toward the living room. The walls, once familiar, felt like boundaries closing in on them. She had spent countless evenings here, wrapped in novels about escapades and mysteries, but now the very space echoed with danger. Where? We can't stay here. Panic laced her words. Jack clenched his fists. We can't draw attention either. Let us head to the basement. Is south the last place anyone would think to look for us? Are you sure? Emily's mind raced with too many thoughts. What if they're already there? Then we'll be waiting for them. He spoke with an intensity that ignited something in her. If they were going to face this together, she needed to trust him. They moved quickly, Jack leading and Emily following close behind. As they stepped into the dimness of the basement, Emily noticed the musty smell of paper and old furniture lingering in the air. Her instinct to organize and protect sprang to life. This space felt wrong but familiar, like the aftermath of a storm hitting a town, everything in chaos but somehow still intact. Do you have your laptop? Jack asked, breaking the silence, urgency thick in his voice. Yes, but what get it? We need to scramble our project files and hide any tracks. Emily nodded and rushed back upstairs, her mind on overdrive, heart pounding. In the kitchen, she snatched her laptop from the corner of the table where it usually served as a makeshift pen for her literary obsessions. The sound of a door creaking echoed from the back of the house, and her blood ran cold. Someone was close. Jack? She called, urgency mingling with fear. I think they're here. Jack appeared, face taut with determination. Let us go. Now. They bolted down to the basement, shutting the heavy door behind them. The darkness engulfed them like a thick blanket, the absence of light amplifying their heightened senses. Emily could hear her breathing, rapid and frantic, as Jack positioned himself beside her. Turn on your laptop, he instructed, keeping his voice low. We need to secure our files. With trembling fingers, she flipped open the device, its screen casting a ghostly glow over their anxious faces. As she navigated to her documents, The air felt electric, a palpable tension filled the space that seemed to stretch on forever. What if they're looking for us and they find the files? She muttered, the fear creeping back into her voice. Jack's brow furrowed. We're in the middle of something big. There's no running from this. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the house, followed by a menacing voice that echoed down the hallway. Where are you? I know you're in here. Emily froze, the words sliding through her like ice water. Stay quiet, Jack whispered, grabbing her arm, his grip solid and reassuring. If they're serious about finding us, we need to play dead. Emily's heart raced once more, each beat thundering in her ears, as she clutched the laptop tighter to her chest. She had never wanted to disappear more than in this moment. Footsteps approached, heavy and deliberate, sending shivers through her spine. The door rattled, a stark reminder of the danger lurking just beyond it. When the handle jiggled, she thought she might scream, but Jack's eyes locked onto hers, and in that instant, she understood. This was it, the moment that defined everything. Then a heavy crash, something breaking. A soft whispering followed, just beyond their sanctuary. Run while you can. The implications wrapped around her like chains, dragging her down into that pit of dread again. Who was behind all this? And what would they do if they found her? But as the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, the thrill of uncertainty surged within her. Jack, she said, voice trembling but resolute, we have to think fast. There's no turning back now. What would it take to outsmart whatever hunted them? And what if the true answer lay within her own instincts? Their eyes met, the tension lingering thick in the damp air. How far would they go to protect their lives and their story? Emily's fingers hovered above the laptop keys. The low hum of the machine filled the charged silence as the heavy footsteps continued. Each thud reverberated in her chest, and she felt like the world was closing in around her. Jack, what if we can't get the files out in time? She asked, glancing at him with wide eyes. He shook his head, a mix of determination and fear etched on his face. If they find the files, they find us. We need to buy some time. Think about what we'll do next. The rattling of the doorknob turned into a loud shove against the door. Emily winced, her heart sinking further into despair. Do you think it's them? All we can do is wait, he said through gritted teeth, pulling at the back of his hair, clearly struggling with the situation. The door splintered, yelling and the sound of clamoring could be heard as the outside world invaded their temporary sanctuary. The tension climbed, suffocating like a heavy fog. Without a word, she began to click through files, her breath quickening as she sorted through documents, glancing nervously at Jack. What are you doing? He looked at her with eyes that were frantic but still focused. I'm erasing them, she paused, the important stuff. We can't let them have it. Don't do that. We need proof of what we found. Evidence, Jack. She hissed, voice cracking as another pound struck against the door. What if they storm in? Just as she pressed the delete button, a loud bang echoed through the basement. Wood splintered, and Jack shot a look toward the door. They're coming. Jack grabbed her wrist, pulling her closer. Listen, there's a vent over there. If we can make it to the other side, we might escape. Emily's heart raced with adrenaline, but hesitation flickered in her gut. What if we get caught? Either we try or we let them take us. It's that simple. He locked eyes with her, strength filling that moment between them. They darted toward the cold metal vent, crawling hands and knees over dirty floorboards. Emily could already hear voices rising, the hunters creeping closer to their hiding place. With a swift motion, Jack pried the vent cover off, the metallic scrape cutting through their fragile bubble of silence. Emily moved first, squeezing her body through the cramped space, her heart racing as fear pumped through her veins. She could hear him following closely behind, the clanking of metal echoing in the narrow shaft. The darkness enveloped her, but she pressed onward, driven by the urgency to escape. Keep going, Jack whispered harshly, nudging her from behind. We can't stop now. Moments stretched into eternity as they crawled through the duct. The sound of muffled voices beneath them heightened every instinct that was screaming for them to flee. But the duct opened into a cramped attic space filled with cobwebs and musty boxes. Emily paused, panting heavily, and turned to Jack. "So what now? Do we go down from here?" He surveyed the area, their dim flashlight catching the glint of dust motes dancing in the air. "We should look for the window, it's our best shot." Jack led the way again. Every creak of the floor felt magnified, her nerves frayed as the stakes continued to rise. They couldn't stay up here forever, but moving meant risking exposure as they neared the window. The chaotic world outside was barely a whisper compared to the frantic thumping of her heart. "Can you open it?" Jack whispered. Emily's hands trembled, and she fiddled nervously with the latch. The moment she pushed it open, a chill breeze cut through the stagnant air, carrying the faint sounds of movement below them. "Careful," Jack warned, his voice barely above a breath. Peeking out, the street under their window felt impossibly distant, every heartbeat urging her to leap into the unknown. "We can make it, right?" she choked out, panic rising. "Trust me," he said with fierce determination, his eyes locking onto hers. "On three." But just then, the voices below grew louder, closer. "I think they went this way. Check the attic." Emily's stomach dropped. They had to move, and fast. "Now or never," Jack urged, and just as she was about to make her jump, she hesitated again. What lay in the darkness beyond this window? Freedom, or a new nightmare waiting in the shadows? The uncertainty loomed as she looked back at Jack, fear mingling with resolve. "Are you ready?" he asked, steadying his breath, poised at the edge of the opening. Before she could respond, they heard a sudden crash from below. The door to the basement burst wide open. "Get out!" Jack shouted. Emily's heart raced as they leapt, the world wide open beneath them, leading into the unknown. What awaited them below? And would they be free, or pursued into an even deeper chaos? The air rushed past Emily as they fell, the ground racing up to meet them. She squeezed her eyes shut, holding onto the fleeting sliver of hope that the landing wouldn't be a disaster. Thump! Both of them hit the ground with a jarring impact, her body crumpling into the grass. She gasped, struggling to catch her breath, squinting against the sudden brilliance of the moonlight that illuminated their surroundings. "Get up! We need to run!" Jack's urgent voice broke through the blur of her disorientation. Pushing herself off the ground, she scrambled to her feet, panic flooding her senses. She turned back toward the house, the attic window now a silent witness to their escape. But the voices were growing louder, more frantic. They were searching. "Where do we go?" Emily's voice was shaky, her mind racing with possibilities. "Into the woods." Jack pointed toward the tree line that sprawled invitingly just beyond the backyard. "We can lose them in there." Heart pounding, she nodded, and they sprinted toward the trees. Branches slapped against her arms as she dodged through the underbrush, every sound amplified in her ears, crunching leaves, snapping twigs, distant shouts. "Over here," one of the voices called, sharper now, right on their heels. "Don't let them get away." Adrenaline coursed through Emily, pushing her forward until she burst into the shadows of the woods. The overwhelming darkness wrapped around her like a woolen blanket, muffling sounds. The further they moved in, the more the unease settled in her chest. Jack halted, crouching behind a thick oak. "We can't make noise. If they hear us," he trailed off, eyes wide with fear. She nodded, trying to regulate her breath, but it was racing like a wild bird trapped in a cage. She could almost hear the hunted drums of her heart drumming against her ribs, urging her to flee even further. Moments dragged on, the world around them thick with silence, save for the murmurs of the wind and the occasional rustle of wildlife. Hours could have passed, or only minutes, it was impossible to tell. "Do you think they're gone?" Emily whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. "I don't know." Jack's brow furrowed as he peered into the depths of the trees. "But we have to keep moving." Before she could respond, a loud crack echoed from the direction of the house, something heavy falling to the ground. Emily stiffened, glancing back toward the sound. "What was that?" she whispered, heart sinking. "I think they might have split up," Jack said, voice tense. "We need to get deeper into the woods." Trembling with fear, she reluctantly followed him as they slipped further into the trees. The ground grew uneven beneath her feet, the darkness isolating them from the chaos beyond. Then, suddenly, a series of gleaming eyes flashed in the underbrush, darting toward them. "Jack!" Emily gasped, her throat closing tight in fright. "Stay close," he urged, grabbing her arm. They stumbled deeper into the night, and Emily's mind raced with possibilities of what would happen if they were caught. Jack led her to a narrow ravine that yawned like a hungry mouth. "We can hide in the dip." Before he could finish, a gunshot rang out, shattering the night's tension like glass. A bullet whizzed overhead, creating a deafening silence that rang in Emily's ears. "Run!" Jack yelled, pulling her toward the ravine. They dove into the gully just as more shots rang out, earth exploding around them. Emily felt the heat of the moment, or was it fear, burning through her veins. Breathing heavily, they pressed themselves against the cool earth, heartbeats syncing with the thunderous chaos above. She could see Jack's face, dark with shadow but illuminated by fear, determination flaring deep within his eyes. A sudden flash of light from nearby, a flashlight cutting through the trees, and voices drawing nearer. They were on the hunt, and Emily felt a cold shiver crawl up her spine. "What do we do?" she whispered desperately, eyes darting around for any potential escape route. Jack's jaw tightened, determination morphing into a grimace of resolve. "We wait. We need to outsmart them." But as she looked into the dark abyss of the woods, an unsettling thought gripped her. What if waiting was the worst decision they could make? Just then, something crashed through the branches above them. Emily's heart stopped. The hunters had found them. They were trapped, nowhere to go. Would they be discovered? And would they survive the night? The sound above them grew louder, crashing like a thunderstorm, branches snapping under the weight of whatever was moving through the trees. The flashlight beam danced across the treetops, coming closer. Emily pressed her hands against the cold earth, trying not to breathe, her heart racing. "Jack, I don't think we can stay here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Just hold on." He hissed back, eyes wide, scanning their surroundings. From their hiding spot, Emily could see shifting shadows, dark figures moving in the distance. A part of her wanted to scream, her panic clawing at her throat. But she forced herself to remain still, gripping Jack's arm tightly as if it could anchor her to sanity. Then a loud shout broke the air. "They've got to be around here somewhere. Check the gully." Emily's chest tightened. The hunters were getting closer, and their voices resonated with an authority that turned her blood to ice. There was no escape right now, no clear path. All they could do was wait and hope the hunters would overlook the dip and move on. Jack was still, but Emily could see the tension in his posture. "Do you think the others are okay?" she whispered, her thoughts racing back to their friends left behind. His expression darkened. "I don't know. But we can't think about that now." The beam of light swept over the gully, coming dangerously close. Emily's breath hitched. They were exposed. Their bodies pressed into the earth would do little to conceal them. Her mind flashed back to the attic. Was this how it would end? How could they have gotten wrapped up in something so deadly? "Look," Jack said quietly, nudging her shoulder with his. She turned just in time to see a figure slip past the gully's edge. The flashlight illuminated a man wearing a dark jacket. He crouched briefly, then moved back again, shouting to someone else. "Head this way," he called. I think they went deeper into the woods. Panic surged in Emily, threatening to overwhelm her. "They'll find us. We have to move." Jack's voice was firm. "Follow me when I say go." The flashlight beam flickered out of view, and Emily quickly scanned the gully. This was their moment. Adrenaline surged through her veins. Jack shifted his weight, preparing to sprint when all hell broke loose. A loud shout erupted from behind them. There they are. In the gully. Emily's heart dropped. They had been spotted. Without a second to lose, Jack grabbed her hand, pulling her up. "Run. Now." They dashed out of the cover of the gully, the world around them exploding into noise. Branches whipped against Emily's face, but she pushed through, driven by the pure instinct to survive. Jack stayed close, his grip like iron as they zigzagged through the thick trees. Behind them, Sounds of pursuit erupted, heavy footsteps crashing through the underbrush, the frantic shouts of the hunters ringing out. The thrill of terror raced alongside them, electrifying and primal. "Over there!" a voice yelled, just as another gunshot echoed through the night. Emily ducked as the air hummed past her ear. She stumbled, losing her footing, and Jack's grip faltered for a split second. "Emily!" he called, panic lacing his voice. Just like that, everything hung in the balance. Would she fall behind? Would they be caught? With her heart hammering in her chest, Emily fought to stand, the determination surging back. Jack reached for her hand again, but the sound of footsteps grew louder. She could feel the breath of their pursuers on the nape of her neck. Desperation pushed them both forward, urging them to keep going. But soon, they would reach the edge of the woods, confrontation looming just ahead. What would they find at the treeline? Was escape truly within reach, or was this the final moment before the storm? With every step, uncertainty gnawed at Emily. The night was closing in, and danger was still lurking. Would they break free, or was this the moment fate had chosen for them? Branches whipped against Emily's face as they plunged deeper into the chaotic embrace of the woods. The moonlight peeked through the foliage like an untrustworthy ally, illuminating the path with ghostly shadows. Jack's hand was hot and reassuring around hers, but the weight of the night bore heavy on their shoulders. "Faster!" he urged, breathless in the distance. Barking voices sent an electric jolt of fear coursing through Emily. She could feel the hunters closing in, their shouts mingling with the rustling foliage. It felt like a nightmare, and the only thing that could wake her was the horrifying grasp of reality. They burst through a thicket, and suddenly, the world opened up. They stood at the edge of a clearing. The air was different here, thicker, almost suffocating. Emily's heart raced as she scanned the area. Tall grass swayed gently, and an abandoned cabin loomed in the distance, its cracked windows like hollow eyes watching them. "Do we hide?" Emily asked, her voice cracking. Jack hesitated. "We can't go back. They'll be searching everywhere. We need cover." He glanced around, eyes darting. The hunters' voices were louder now, shadows flitting between the trees. Emily's stomach twisted. If they didn't make a move soon, let us check the cabin. Jack's decision rang with urgency as he pulled her forward. They ran to the cabin, its wood weathered and gray, standing defiantly against the encroaching darkness. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking ominously as it swayed in the light breeze. Jack pushed it open, and they slipped inside, breathless. The air inside felt stale, like a long-forgotten secret. Moonlight spilled through the gaps in the wood, illuminating a clutter of old furniture and dust-covered memories. Emily's pulse thudded against her eardrums as she surveyed their surroundings. The cabin had a sense of abandonment, but it was a hiding place. "We need to find something to barricade the door," Jack whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Emily nodded, her eyes scanning the room. An old table lay to her left, its legs crooked. With shaking hands, they pushed it against the door, the wood scraping across the floor. "Do you think they'll find us?" Emily's hands trembled. "We won't let them." Jack's voice was steady, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. Footsteps echoed outside, cutting through the tension like a knife. A chilling whisper carried through the gaps. "They could be in there. Search it." Panic surged as Emily realized they had only bought themselves a few moments of safety. She swallowed hard, trying to silence the dread rising in her chest. "What do we do if they come in?" "I don't know," Jack admitted, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "We need to think of something fast." Then, out of the corner of her eye, Emily noticed something glinting beneath the table. She crouched down, heart pounding, and reached for it. Disbelief washed over her as she pulled out an old revolver, heavy and cold in her hand. "Where did this come from?" she gasped, eyes widening. "Looks like the cabin S&T just abandoned," Jack replied grimly, stepping closer. "We might have to use it." The weight of the gun felt like a burden, yet it tethered her to a sense of bravery she wasn't sure she possessed. Outside, the hunters' voices grew louder. The door quaked with the force of their impatience. "Get ready," Jack whispered, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Emily's breath quickened as they crouched behind the table, a frail barrier between life and death. The glare of the flashlight pierced through the cabin's cracks, pooling on the floor like ink. Suddenly, the door rattled, and the voices hardened. "Get in there. They can't have gone far." As the door creaked, fear took hold of Emily's soul. Would this be the moment where they'd either fight for their lives or meet their demise? Jack exchanged a tense look with her. Then the door flew open with a crash, plunging them into chaos. Outside, the hunters moved in, and Emily tightened her grip on the revolver. Were they about to fight for their lives, or had they sealed their fate? The moment they had entered the woods, just then, a voice called out from the darkness, chilling her to the bone, "You can't run forever." Emily's heart stalled, a frozen lump in her throat. Panic surged with a crushing force, each heartbeat a relentless reminder of the urgency of their situation. The darkness outside whispered threats that felt almost alive, swirling around them like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. "What do we do now?" she breathed, fingers trembling as they gripped the gun. The revolver felt both powerful and terrifying, an instrument of survival that could easily turn on them if they lost control. Jack peered over the table through the narrow gap, eyes locked on the door. Shadows danced outside, flickering menacingly with the beam of the flashlight. "We wait. Just stay quiet and don't move unless I say so," he instructed, though the weight of uncertainty creased his brow. The hunters' voices continued, seeping through the fragile walls, each word an echo of the hunt. "They have to be in there. Check the windows." Emily pressed her back against the cold wood of the cabin, fighting to steady her breath. She could hear the scuff of boots on the forest floor, the crackling of twigs beneath their weight. It sent a chill through her veins. "Think, Emily, think," she murmured to herself, trying to silence the chaos in her mind. She needed a plan, but all she could focus on was the pounding of her heart and the growing dread that they wouldn't escape alive. Jack glanced back, eyes flashing with a thought. "If we have to shoot, make sure it counts. We can't waste bullets," or his voice broke off, the seriousness of his words hanging ominously. "Or what?" Emily pressed, desperate for clarity. "Or we could be dead," he finished quietly, his gaze unwavering. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed like thunder as someone slammed their fist against the door. It rattled in response, dust falling from the ceiling with each impact. "I know you're in there. Come out with your hands up." Hot fear washed over Emily, turning her stomach. The determination boiling within her began to bubble, fueled by raw adrenaline. There was no way she was going to let them drag her out. "We can't just sit here," she burst out, her voice rising in defiance. "Emily, keep it down," Jack snapped, but it was too late. The hunters were already coming closer. "In there. They're hiding. I can see the light," an excited voice shouted, and the thump-thump of footsteps began to circle around the cabin. "Jack," Emily whispered, heart racing. "What do we do if they break in?" He stole another glance at the door, fear and anger mingling within him. "We take cover and get ready. If they come through that door, we'll just then—" The door creaked again, only this time it was from the inside. The old wood groaned, and a slow, gravelly voice seeped into the cabin. "You should have never come here." The words chilled Emily to her core. They were not alone. Before she could process, a sudden rush of energy filled the room, and another shadow loomed behind them, casting long fingers across the floor. Panic surged anew, pounding in Emily's ears. "Jack! Behind us!" In an instant, the cabin transformed from a sanctuary into a death trap. Jack turned, and their eyes met, fear mingled with determination. "Ready?" he asked, gripping the edge of the table like a lifeline. Emily swallowed hard, her heart thundering. "As ready as we'll ever be." Just then, the door burst open completely, and the beam of a flashlight illuminated a face twisted with malice. "There you are." With no time left, Emily raised the revolver, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Would they fight or fall? Just then, another voice cut through the chaos, chilling her further. "What's this? You're not gonna shoot, are you?" Let us make a deal. Emily's hand trembled around the revolver. The world seemed to shrink around her, reducing all the chaos to the looming figure that filled the doorway, dripping with an unsettling swagger. This new intruder had a look in his eyes, one she recognized all too well from the pages of her books, a cunning villain making his entrance with all the theatrics of a grand performance. But this was no story. This was her life, and the stakes were impossibly high. Let us make a deal, he said again, his voice smooth like silk but underscored by a threat that cut like glass. Who sent you? Jack's voice came out sharp and low, but Emily could hear the frayed edges of fear wrapped around each word. The man smirked, taking a confident step inside. You're in over your heads, kids. This little literary project of yours isn't going to go as smoothly as you think. The higher-ups aren't just upset, they're furious. But I can help you for a price. Emily's mind raced. How could this man offer anything but more complications? She cast a quick glance at Jack, his jaw clenched as he weighed their options. They had come this far, and giving in felt like losing everything they had fought to hold on to. What do you want? Jack asked, his posture tense as he subtly shifted closer to Emily, a protective shadow against the encroaching darkness. Simple. I want a seat at your table, access to everything you're working on, the man replied. You give me that, and I ensure your little concept doesn't get buried before it takes off. For how long? She spat back, her pulse racing. Hadn't she read enough about corrupt deals leading nowhere but disaster? Long enough to secure the future of both our interests. Think about it, a partnership like this could revolutionize literature. He smiled, but his demeanor felt predatory, and she narrowed her eyes. No deal, Jack said firmly, squeezing Emily's shoulder, grounding her resolve. The man's smile fell. You think I'm playing games? You're in danger whether you want to recognize it or not. The words hung heavily in the air, a shroud of unease wrapping around them. But Emily couldn't back down. Not now. She stepped forward slightly, her voice trembling yet defiant. We're not afraid of you or anyone else. If your bosses want to fight, we'll give it to them. The man's expression shifted, amusement dancing momentarily in his eyes. Brave words, kid. But bravery can also be foolishness. For a heartbeat, all of them just stood there, tension sizzling like a spark waiting to ignite into flames. Then the man's expression turned cold, and he signaled toward the door. They'll be here soon. Think about what I said. His warning hung between them, echoing against the walls of the cabin as he stepped back into the night. As the door creaked shut behind him, Emily felt her chest tighten, an unwelcome sense of dread creeping in, intensifying under the weight of his threats. We need to think, Jack said, his eyes flicking back to hers. We just can't let them win. You think I don't know that? She shot back, anger coursing through her veins. The fire ignited inside her, pushing her past fear. We have to turn this back on them. If they think they can intimidate us, we'll show them how wrong they are. Jack nodded, the glimmer of admiration for her strength lighting his gaze. You're right. They're hunting us, but we're not prey. We can expose what they're trying to do, turn the narrative back toward us. A sudden crash echoed outside, a signal that their time for deliberation was running out. Get ready, Jack said, determination flooding his voice. They had to act fast, and every second counted. Emily took a deep breath, grounding herself. She knew this was about more than just literature now. It was a battle for their lives and their creation. Let us get to work. They moved, almost instinctively, to a corner of the cabin where dust-covered notebooks and crumpled papers lay. Jack rifled through them, pulling together a collection of ideas and notes necessary to protect their project, while Emily focused on gathering the few essentials they could carry. The urgency pressed in, and as they worked side by side, there was an electricity buzzing between them, an unspoken understanding that they would face whatever came next together. They could hear the hunters closing in, their voices threading through the shroud of the forest. They're close. Find them, each shout intensifying their urgency. Okay, how do we get out of here? Emily whispered, glancing around for an escape before the walls closed in. We have to climb out through the back window. It's risky, but it gives us a chance to slip away unseen, Jack said, his gaze steady and unwavering. The moment felt surreal. Here she was, no longer just an observer of stories but a character in one. One that had spun dangerously close to a deadly climax. They moved toward the window, adrenaline thrumming through their bodies. Jack lifted her up first, his hands a firm reassurance beneath her as she climbed over the sill. As Emily dropped to the ground, she felt the rush of freedom washing over her. But there was no time to linger in the relief. Go, go, Jack hissed, pushing through the window with a determination that left her breathless. The moon loomed overhead, guiding their way as they sprinted out of the clearing and into the deeper woods. Behind them, the cabin stood silent now, a ghost of their past, no longer a safe haven but a mere reminder of the danger they faced. But with each step further into the darkness, Emily could feel a shift inside her. She was no longer chasing stories bound between fragile pages. She was the author of her fate, penning a new one into existence. The stakes were high, but together, they would face whatever was waiting on the other side. Together, they might just rewrite this narrative into one that could change everything. As they continued their escape, a new sense of hope ignited in her heart. This wasn't just about survival anymore. They were standing at the edge of possibility. It was time to fight back. Will they find a way to defeat their pursuers? Will they protect their vision of literature? Stay tuned. In this world, the power of stories isn't just on the pages but in the courage of the heart. Now, before you go, this is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter in this epic saga. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear what you think of our brave Emily and Jack. Lastly, share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this thrilling conclusion. We're all in this together, pushing the boundaries of imagination. Don't wait even one more second.